This video will walk you through the setup process of a Salford AB320AF2M air boom on a Raven Viper 4 Plus display. This chassis-mounted air boom allows for individual metering of 3 separate granular products using 2 hoppers and a micro hopper. To start, enter the profile name for the unit. You may name this anything you'd like to identify the air boom by. In this case, we'll name it 6790 foot and press the checkbox. Next, click the machine type box and select self-propelled spreader, followed by the green arrow button in the top right corner of the screen. Enter the application width as 90 and ensure that the unit of measurement selected is in feet. Below the application width is the software version number and the hardware serial number. These cannot be edited but can be referenced in the future if needed. Once you've reviewed that the correct information is entered, click the Next Page button. If at any time you want to change what has been entered, you may navigate to previous pages using the blue Previous and Next Page buttons near the bottom of the screen. On this page, next to the ECU serial number, ensure the ECU number is set to 1 and the number of products is set to 3 for the 2 main hoppers and micro hopper on the AB320AF2M. Click the Next Page button. This page will be used to set up the fan RPM sensors. Click the numbered box and select 1, which represents the 1 fan RPM sensor on the machine. Now check the box beside Enable Fan Spinner RPM Control, and then continue to the next page. Under the application type setup, set each product to granular fertilizer, then click the Next Page button. Next, you will set the application mode for each product to Dual Control Valve, clicking the Next Page button after each product is set. After these are set, you will see a page titled Aux-N Setup. Check the box to enable this function, which allows for the joystick in the chassis to be used for boom control and adjustment. Once you've clicked to the next page, you'll see an illustration for the section groups. The 60 feet in the illustration is only used as an example and does not represent the application width of the machine being set up. We want to set this as Yes, which means that each product group is using the same number of sections. Once the Yes option is confirmed, click to move to the next page. Now we will set the number of sections as 2 for the left and right sections. Ensure that the equal width sections and granular product sections power to apply boxes are both checked, then click the Next Page button. Next, set the application width for both sections as 45 feet if they are not already set to 45. Once confirmed, proceed to the next page. This page is used to set up the auxiliary drivers. However, this air boom will not be using auxiliary drivers. Ensure that each is set to none, then click the Next Page button. On the switch mapping page, verify that section 1 is set to 1 and section 2 is set to 2, then click to the next page. This page will show the section setup summary for each product. Once you've confirmed the section summary, you may click to proceed to the next page. This air boom does not feature scales, and therefore the scale setup can be left as None. On the pressure sensor setup page, click on Pressure Sensor 4 and select the temperature option, and then proceed to the Next Page button and set Pressure Sensor 4 to read all 3 products by checking each box. On the next page, enter 180 as the max temperature and check the alarm box for Sensor 4. On the next page, check the oil level sensor installed box, and then continue to the following step. Ensure that the RPM sensor assignment is checked for each product. On the preceding pages, you will enter all the settings for granular product 1. On the Setup Control Valve page, change the valve response rate to 30, leave valve delay at 0, and do not check the PWM Smart Control box. On the Setup PWM page, set the coil frequency to 120, leave the high limit at 100, set the low limit as 16, and the startup value as 22. On the Setup Rate Sensor page, set the product density to the density of the product being applied. In this example, we will use 65 pounds per cubic foot. Set the pulses per revolution as 67, enter 70 for the spreader constant, and 3 inches for the gate height. On the Setup Tank/Bin page, set the tank capacity as 10,000, leave the current tank level as 0, set the low tank level to 500, check the alarm box and low bin level sensor box, and then leave the low bin level sensor options as the default settings. On the next page, the preset rates can be set as whatever rates you commonly use. In this case, we will use 200, 400, and 600. Set the bump rate to 20, ensure the rate selection is set to predefined or RX, and display smoothing is checked and leave the decimal shift as 0. On the Setup Alarms page, the settings can be left as shown on the screen and then proceed to the next page. Now you will go through and adjust the same settings for Granular Product 2. Set the valve response rate to 30. Then click the Next Page button. Set the PWM low limit to 16 and the PWM startup to 22. On the next page, enter the product density, 65 in this case, set the pulses per revolution to 67, the spreader constant to 70, and the gate height to 3. Proceed to the next page and enter 9,000 for the tank capacity, 500 for the low tank level, check the low tank alarm box, and check the low bin level sensor box, leaving the settings on default. Click the Next Page button and set your desired preset rates, 200, 400, and 600 in this example. Set the rate bump to 20 and ensure the other settings are as shown. On the next page, confirm that the settings shown in this video are entered. Clicking the Next Page button will then bring you into the settings for Granular Product 3, which is the micronutrient hopper. On the Setup Control Valve page, ensure that the settings are set as shown on the screen. On the next page, set the PWM low limit to 18 and the PWM startup to 30. Moving on to the next page, enter the product density, 45 in this case, set the pulses per revolution to 56. For the spreader constant, the number entered will depend on the micro roller used. If using a standard pegged roller, enter 600 for the spreader constant. If using a low rate pegged roller, set the spreader constant as 2000. In this case, we'll use 600. Set the gate height as 0.3 and click the Next Page button. Set the tank capacity to 2,100, set the low tank level to 150, and check the alarm box. Also check the low bin level sensor and use the default settings. On the next page, enter your desired preset rate values. In this case, we'll use 50, 100, and 150. Set the rate bump to 10 and proceed to the next page. Ensure the alarms are set to the same settings as you see in this video, and then click the Next Page button. Now you will enter the settings for Product 4, which represents the fan. Set the valve response rate to 8 and check the constant control box, then click the Next Page button. Set the PWM high limit to 90, the PWM low limit to 15, and the PWM startup to 50. On the next page, set the RPM cal pulses per revolution to 2, which represents the 2 pickup points for the fan RPM sensor. Press the Next Page button and set the desired RPM rate preset values for the fan. In this case, we'll use 3,250, 3,500, and 3,750. Set the rate bump to 10, then proceed to the next page. Finally, ensure that the alarm values are set up as shown in this video, and then click the Next Page button. On the page will be displayed a summary of the machine setup. From here, you can click the Next Page button to complete the setup process. The monitor will then take some time to load and then bring you to the main run screen, meaning the setup process is complete and your AB320AF2M is ready for the field.